For the British Art. She's the curator of many exhibits, most recently Art of Emancipation in Jamaica, Isaac Mendez Belisario and his Worlds, which we'll be speaking about today. Our second presenter is Michel Giraud, who is a senior researcher at the CNRS, the Centre National de Recherche Scientifique, in Paris. He lives in Paris and also works in Martinique. He's associated with the CRPLC, an important research center at the University of Martinique. Long career, including work on French and Italian populations in metropolitan France, on sexuality in the French Caribbean, and most recently he's been on the front lines of a lot of the memory wars in French, about the French Caribbean, as well, with a series of articles, including one in Le Monde. The third presenter is Jane Clark Chermayeff, who's an educator and exhibit developer specializing in multimedia exhibits and programs, particularly in anchoring sites in the cultural landscape. She's been positions at the National Endowment for the Arts, at the Smithsonian, and for 25 years has worked with the Conservation Trust of Puerto Rico. And finally, Geert Oostindie, whose name does mean East Indies, in case you were wondering, as he mentioned yesterday. Director of the Royal Netherlands Institute of South Asian and Caribbean Studies, which is located in Leiden, also a professor at the University of Leiden. He's a leading specialist on the Dutch Caribbean and author of numerous books, including most recently Paradise Overseas, the Dutch Caribbean, Colonialism, and its Transatlantic Legacies. And I should also say that Michel has, I actually collaborate with Michel on the project that we're speaking about, so I don't know how moderate I'll be able to be at times. He's already threatened me with saying that I can't just stand here on the sidelines, so I can participate a little in the discussion as well. So we'll begin with Gillian, and thanks for being here.
Good morning. Can everyone hear me? Yeah. Okay. Put the lights down. We art historians like to talk in the dark. All that way. Right. Art and Emancipation in Jamaica, and then travelled to the British Empire and Commonwealth Museum in Bristol. And we hope we'll then be going to the National Gallery of Jamaica, but a little more about that scenario anon. And this is going to be the first exhibition which ever, which focuses on the visual culture of slavery and emancipation in Jamaica. And we're going to include works produced both in the Caribbean and Britain. And we're drawing them from very diverse collections. We have a core of excellent material in our own collection and elsewhere at Yale, but we're borrowing extensively from public and private collected instruments, paintings, drawings, quite diverse objects. And the exhibition is going to chronicle the iconography of sugar, slavery, and the topography of Jamaica, beginning from 1655, from the inception of British rule there, and then continuing on to the aftermath of emancipation, and we'll be concluding with Morant Bay. And when I started out on the project, my knowledge of both slavery and the Caribbean was slight, but I'm very interested in the British Empire, and one of the big attractions for me to come and work at the centre was our extremely rich collections of visual material relating to empire. And this was meant to be a small back burner project for me, but somehow it's gained extraordinary momentum. Frankly, it's become a complete obsession, which I think is transforming my life. So it's nice to talk to a new audience about it, because my colleagues are just tired. Whenever I mention Jamaica, they just roll their eyes. So I have a new set of people to bore. But I do want to acknowledge just the very, very rich scholarship in this field that's already taken place. There's a very formidable historiography, as you know, which we've had to grapple with. But without that, this project would be impossible, and also without the support and advice and encouragement of many people working in the field. I'm going to say a little bit about the genesis of the exhibition. It was suggested to me in 2002 by a graduate student at Yale, Barbaro Martinez-Ruiz, who's Cuban, who works on African art. He was conscripted to fight in the Angolan War, caged himself, and came to Yale to work with Robert Farris Thompson. And he's particularly interested in Congo and Angolan art and performance. And he took a seminar which was taught by my colleague Tim Barringer, who's a professor in the history of art department, who teaches British art but has particular interest in empire. So he taught a graduate seminar on art in the British Empire, and Barbaro did a remarkable presentation and paper on a series of prints we had in our exhibition, which I didn't know actually, in our collection, sorry, which I didn't know we had. Even though I'm a print historian, but we have a large collection of prints. He proposed that we do an exhibition. And these, I'm going to show you, they're just 12 prints in the series. They're called Sketches of Character. And they're made by a very obscure to us, but very well known in Jamaican artist called Isaac Mendes Belisario, who was a Sephardic Jew. His family originally came to Jamaica from Portugal via Haiti, and he was born in 1795, went to England with his family when he was a child, and trained to be an artist there, and moved back and forth between Kingston and London, and then settled back in Kingston in the early 1830s. And these images are they're very extraordinary. There are 12 lithographs in the series. He intended there should be more, but the series was never completed. And they depict these slave carnivals that took place every year in Kingston and elsewhere in Jamaica during the Christmas holidays. And I won't have time to go into the complexities of it, but the series actually represents several different performance masquerade traditions. But the one that we're particularly interested in is John Canoe, derived, I think everyone agrees, from Africa, brought there by the enslaved Africans, and it's a performance tradition that became overlaid by European traditions. And this is the kind of central figure from the masquerade performance, John Canoe, who would originally, earlier we think, actually wear a wooden boat canoe on his head, which by the 1830s has become transformed into a plantation house. The sets is another tradition that actually comes from Haiti after the revolution. This figure here, the Queen Nan, is a matriarchal figure which Barbaro thinks actually derives from matriarchal secret societies in West Africa, and then the group of performers. And then these images derive from another tradition, the actor boy tradition, which seems to have kind of emanated more from European theatrical traditions. So they're extremely complex images, and these are published in sets of 4. So I'm showing you the form in which they're actually published. And this is the last group of images, which actually show occupational types. But these images are very, extraordinary and very exciting for us because they're published in 1837 and 8. The publication starts there and is published progressively, and right on the eve of Emancipation. And John Canoe, as Richard D. Burton and other scholars has argued, was clearly a transgressive phenomenon. It was sanctioned by slave owners who would provide the slaves with costumes, but it clearly did function as something. It's a form of resistance, it's disruptive, it was from time to time banned, and so we're interested in focusing on this as a way of, of really examining, how resistance to the enslaved functioned in Jamaica. And so, having seen these prints and discussed them with Barbara, I proposed to my colleagues at the Centre that we curate a small exhibition, and Tim Barringer came in as a co-curator, and we each brought different sets of interest. Barbara, as I've already explained, is an Africanist, and he's particularly, his thesis is that the religious ceremonial practices of West Africa, Congo, Nigeria, Cameroon are a crucial element of John Canoe. And he's been doing very detailed analysis of gesture, pose, costumes and textiles, and decorative elements. And as I've already mentioned, Tim is particularly interested in the British Empire, and also much of his work has focused on the iconography of labour, particularly in 19th century British art, both agricultural and industrial. So he was very interested in exploring the images of the plantation and the sugar economy. I'm an art historian and who spent most of my working life in galleries at the National Portrait Gallery, the Tate Gallery in London before coming here, and I work on British prints. Just to demonstrate the kinds of materials that Barbaro is looking at. He's chosen specific plates, and then he's selecting objects around them. These are the kinds of images that Tim is investigating for the show, and these are the sorts of works that I work on. I'm interested in British prints. I'm particularly interested in the Cries tradition, European tradition, and the kinds of prints that are being published during the Napoleonic Wars of Britain and the immediate aftermath of street vendors and beggars. And on the screen, the centre is a Belisario figure of Lovey, who is actually a named person, and he provides a biography in his accompanying text. He's not a sort of generic type. And on the left and right of there, the two images from a series of prints of street people in London who are this figure here. Oops, sorry. Is this figure here is someone called Joseph Johnson, again the named person, who actually comes from Jamaica, and this is someone called Charles McGee, who was a merchant seaman originally from Africa. So I'm interested in how these diaspora figures are represented at this period. So that's how I sort of really got sort of plugged into the project. And essentially tentatively agreed to the exhibition. We were in a directorial into Rednam at that period, which is, you know, often a happy time for us because we can play. So there was a sort of general consensus that we could investigate this exhibition, though at that point we were institutionally not making any decisions about firm decisions about exhibitions. And we applied for a grant to a not-for-profit foundation called Inter-Americas, who they gave us a grant for research of $25,000, which has enabled us to do a couple of research trips to Jamaica. So we did go in 2004, and it was an extraordinary visit. We timed our visit to coincide with a conference at the University of West Indies to honour Stuart Hall, which was an extraordinary, very moving event actually. It was a sort of huge homecoming for him, and also enabled us to meet many colleagues at the University of West Indies. And we went to Spanish Town, downtown Kingston, and also visited a couple of working plantations, Good Hope, which these images here, which is a working plantation. It's also a honeymoon paradise. If you really want to, you can spend your wedding night in the counting house. Yeah, it's in there, but it's an incredible state of preservation. The owner has actually been sort of, well, it's exactly lovingly restored. I don't know what the adjective is, but it has been restored. So there's a cemetery, there's a huge slave hospital there, so we were treated to the trope of the benevolent plantation owner. You know, how remarkable it was. They have a hospital that had 300 beds, and we also went to Worthy Park, which is a large plantation. They still grow a lot of sugar. 80% of the cane is still cut by hand. For me, it was an astonishing experience. And it took a while for us to get over recover from our post-colonial guilt, but it was good for us. We also saw a performance out in the country at Troja in St Mary's of John Canoe. And I haven't got time to go into this because it was so complex, but the performance was actually commissioned for an event which was to celebrate some of the wealthiest entrepreneurs in Jamaica who had originally owned land in the village, so they were invited back. It's very complicated, but we did see John Canoe, and we talked to the group, we photographed them. And this was a sort of very exciting experience for us. And our visit was also timely in terms of thinking about how would approach. Oh dear, really? The project of commemoration. Can I have 5 minutes? And because the controversy was still raging in Jamaica about this sculpture Redemption Song, which was made by Laura Facey, who is indeed the daughter of the wealthy entrepreneurs, plantocrats that I just mentioned. It was unveiled in 2003, was an extremely controversial, and Bob Marley's, it's named obviously after Bob Marley's Redemption Song, and his words, emancipate yourself from mental slavery, none but ourselves can free our minds, was inscribed on the base, but there was a copyright challenge from the Marley estate. And this was called an early, which was commissioned, but then taken away from the public site after popular protest and replaced by this much more sort of prosaic portrait. So it's clear that our exhibition could not celebrate emancipation, and we're very, very clear about this. It's a commemoration, but it's also an exploration of the unfinished legacy of slavery. And these are the kinds of objects that we're going to have in the exhibition. We're also including a section again of contemporary works by Jamaicans, which respond to this topic. So we want to leave the door on this. I think the important thing for the show is that it's going to function as as what David Scott in Conscripts of Modernity calls a conjectural space, a historically constituted discursive place. We want it to be somewhere where dialogue can take place. And I'm afraid I won't be able to cover all my material, but I just want to say something about where this show will be happening at Yale, which is at Yale Centre for British Art. It's an institution that was founded by the very wealthy art collector and philanthropist Paul Mellon, and so this is a life's project for him, which encapsulates a particular set of values, assumed values about what British culture constitutes. And it's regarded, we have had exhibitions on British Empire, we had 2 exhibitions on India which do critique empire, but we've never dealt with the topic of slavery. And as we know, it's also a topic that Yale is very wary and anxious about engaging with. And many of you will have seen the article in the yale.edu just last Monday, a student of the undergraduate newspaper, which reproduced this window at Canoe College, which has recently been restored, and this was a response to the Brown reparations issue. So it's challenging for us to do this exhibition here in many ways, and there was a lot of institutional anxiety. We don't have a board at the centre, which is an extraordinary position to be in. But there was a lot of sort of ambient anxiety that wasn't really fully articulated. And I have to say it's very much thanks to the support that we've received from David and his colleagues at GILDER that our colleagues have become much more comfortable with the idea. And this is a space for the show, and drawings and prints from the National Gallery of Jamaica and the National Library of Jamaica. They have very small budgets. Their climate control is not great, the conditions for storing works, and we've already got these works there. I went here over there a month ago and couriered them back, and they're not in great shape. So we're doing conservation work, and again we persuaded our director to agree to fund this work, which we think is very important. And we have developed very close relationships with institutions and individuals in Jamaica, and this is a relationship which is ongoing, and we see that we want it to have a life that's going to go much far beyond the actual duration of the show. I can't really talk about these, and there will be difficult and controversial images, but I'll just say that what our contribution academically, we feel, is to really unpick these images. As Jerry Handler noted in, and Annie Steiner noted in their recent article identifying pictorial images of Atlantic slavery, they say it's almost axiomatic that images do not speak for themselves, and they go on to comment that many images are reproduced in books, particularly history books, without any comment or critique, without any investigation about the circumstances under which they were produced. Many of these images of Jamaica are produced by Europeans through a filter, a lens of Western representation, and we're really trying to unpick, what's going on here. So we hope that, and it's true, as Elizabeth mentioned yesterday, that many of these images, they're quasi-pornographic, and they're problematic, but we feel that we need to address these images and contextualize them. And we also, and also they represent, a lot of ambiguity produced in the cause of abolition. But what their consumers actually thought about them and how they consume them is an interesting question that we're really trying to address. And also in terms of agents, we don't have the slave narratives, we don't have portraits, but we have borrowed a number of works which we already have here from the National Library. This is from a calendar of work from the Radnor coffee plantation. We have the Montpellier account book, which Barry Higman has worked on extensively, and we've also borrowed this, which is the list of punishments meted out to slaves in the 1831, after the 1831 rebellion. Okay, I'll wrap up. But yeah, okay. But also, I'll just finally say that we will be doing a lot of programming around this exhibition. They'll have a symposium which we're working on in conjunction with GILDER, LERHMAN, lectures, seminars. I'm trying to bring a John Canoe group over to perform. There'll be workshops. High school teacher institute which will run in the summer. We'll start an intensive program of docent training in the spring and student guide training, and so there will be a lot of outreach, and admission to our museum is free. So thank you.